Okay, guys, I'm back. This is Will McInty from QBS over here in the UK. It's 12 o'clock here. It's 1 o'clock your time. It's time to kick off today's fantastic briefing delivered primarily by Bernie from QBS Africa, or QBS MEA, and we're going to be covering as much as we can in the allotted time around the announcements around Dynamics 365 Business Central. So I'm going to hand it over to you, Bernie.
Hi there, Will. Thanks a lot for that. Like Will mentioned, guys, you please, if you would add your questions and comments to the chat window, and then hold that to the end, and we'll have a question and answer session right at the end. Welcome to this update on Dynamics 365 Business Central What's New session. Surely an exciting session because, of course, as some of you might know, Directions in North America is actually just completed. And at the end of the month, we'll, of course, have the Directions Europe, where we'll catch up with what was said at the Directions US conference. So lots of new announcements, lots of things happening, and without further ado, let's step in and have a look at what's new and what we're going to be covering. First thing we're going to cover is just have a look at the Business Central on-premise launch and have a look at what's new, what they've actually changed, etc. Of course, with this launch, the name of Dynamics NAV has now officially changed to Dynamics 365 Business Central on-premise. So as far as the Business Central brand goes, there is now an online version and an on-premise version available, and we'll have a look at what's new. Of course, a lot of the what's new stuff actually goes back and forth between the two. So between having what's new on the cloud version and what's new on the on-premise version, some things would be new on the on-premise only, some things new on the cloud only, but a lot of the things that's new is actually new across the board on both versions. There is an enhanced Power BI embedded experience in the on-premise version. We'll have a look at that quickly. We'll also have a look at a new announcement that they made called Intelligent Edge for GPSL and NAV. We'll introduce that to you guys, show you what it is and how it works and what it does. And then we'll show you what's new in terms of the tenant administration for VARs, a new portal that they've created for us. And then, of course, the announcement that's gotten a lot of people, some people, I'd say, were surprised by it, but Microsoft's been heading this direction for a while. The announcement that the CAL development environment is going to be deprecated in 2020. And we'll have a look at what that entails, what it means for us, and some action steps on what to do to get ready for this. We'll also have a look at the roadmap going forward and a couple of other things that were mentioned at the Directions conference. So let's have a look at the Business Central on-premise launch. A lot of changes in terms of the productivity. Of course, we're looking at the web client now. So Microsoft has listened to the feedback in the channel in terms of the usability and the productivity of the actual web client.
Hey, Bernie, hey, Bernie, it's Will.
Yes, Will.
Hi, are you showing the web client screen at this moment in time?
No, I'm still on the PowerPoint slide.
Okay, I think you need to minimize your Skype window. It's on top of your PowerPoint at the moment.
Okay. Are we looking at PowerPoint now?
We've still got the Skype window in front of it.
No, that's not the case for me.
Okay.
No, me neither.
Okay, sorry, it must be a UK challenge. I shall turn it off.
There we go. Okay.
Will, that's probably your Skype window.
Yeah. Okay. Everybody else.
You're absolutely right.
Yeah, there we go. Okay, so in terms of the productivity, some new things introduced in the web client
as well.
Sorry, I missed that. A lot of new productivity features has been introduced. We've got some of the things that we were used to in the role-tailored client as well as maybe in the classic client. Some filtering enhancements, lots of extra abilities have been added in terms of this, in terms of navigation, and they've also taken a look at how users enter data into tables. So entering tabular data, the speed at which users can enter data has been improved quite drastically in this release. They've also added extra filtering for rows and totals, so the ability to do flow filters has now been added to the client as well. They've added features in terms of row-based copy and paste. Sorry guys, please remember just to mute yourself so when you come into the presentation. We've also got some row-based copy and paste features where previously in the web client you couldn't copy and paste rows out of the actual client itself. Lots of improvements in terms of this. They've also added keyboard navigation. They've improved certain shortcuts, and they've also added the ability to access the application from anywhere, which is just enhancements on what they've done in the past. So in terms of the filtering, they've added a new filter screen and the ability to actually add filters to most of the screens. So screens where we didn't have filters before, especially the list screens with the new views that they had. You can see on the screenshot over there that you can now add your filters on the left-hand side over there. In terms of the keyboard shortcuts, what I've actually done is I've added quite a couple of URLs on my presentation over there for you guys. So when we share the slide deck with you guys afterwards, you'll have shortcuts to the relevant sites that will tell you what's new in all of the different areas. So I've added a link over there, aka.ms/BC keys. The shortcut keys that weren't available in the client in the past is now actually available. One of the main ones that was missing is F8, copy the contents of the cell above. So if you're doing a journal and your description is the same for multiple lines, you can just F8 to copy the contents of the cell above. Shift up and down arrows to select rows, Control C to copy rows, etc. All of these were not available in the web client in the past, and now we have the ability to do this. They've also refreshed the entire desktop experience. What they were aiming at is a better layout of data, better data visibility and readability, easier navigation, etc. They basically wanted to improve the user experience from the web client's perspective to assist with the adoption from a client's perspective, as well as the user's ability to actually use the system to its fullest. So there were lots of refinements that was actually included across the application. I've actually, in the comments section on a lot of these slides, copied and pasted a lot of information off of docs.microsoft.com, which you guys can go and read afterwards as well. The details pages as well got a little bit of a new look and feel, just refreshed, and in terms of the way in which it looks and feels across the different platforms as well. The access from anywhere, lots of improvements in terms of the different apps that we've got. So the Android app and the iPhone app, the look and feel across the different apps, as well as the tablet apps, etc., making the product more accessible from anywhere as well. They've also added, one of the new features that they've added is accessibility features. So what they've done is they've made sure that the new desktop client actually meets all accessibility standards set forth by Microsoft. They've had a special focus on low vision and low mobility users. And also they've made the client work in such a way so that it will work with accessibility programs like on-screen readers, as well as be able to work with high contrast screens for people with reduced visibility, etc. I've also added a link on there if you want to find out about Microsoft's commitment to accessibility. I've added a link on there that will take you to a site that will show you a little bit more about that. Next thing is the enhanced Power BI embedded experience. So where the previous sections that I've shown you guys is actually enhancements that were done both for the tablet client, for the web client on-premise as well as online. The enhanced Power BI embedded experience is actually done for the on-premise version only. The idea is to better manage your BI reports without ever leaving Business Central, and the ability to actually have your Power BI reports available from within your on-premise version of NAV. You can actually customize your embedded reports straight on your Business Central homepage, where previously a lot of these features were reserved for the online version only. These are all now available in the on-premise version as well. When you actually deploy the on-premise version, on signing in the first time, your reports will automatically deploy to your on-premise implementation. And then one of the new announcements from Microsoft is something they call the Intelligent Edge for GPSL and NAV. Now, with this new enhancement, what they basically have done is they have created a way for you to utilize the online intelligence features that was previously available only to the online version. So where previously you could have this Cortana intelligence only on your online Business Central deployment, Microsoft wanted to make a way to make this available to the on-premise deployments as well. So whether you have a Business Central on-premise deployment, whether you have NAV, whether you have GP or SL, you can now connect through to Business Central and replicate your data onto Business Central, which gives you the ability to make use of features like the common data services, Power BI, Flow, Power Apps, etc., and write your own web application for this. The main thing is that you can utilize the machine learning and the stream analytics, etc. The example that they used at Directions North America, they said what you could use is you could use the machine learning to actually analyze payment trends from customers to predict your cash flow a little bit better. So this is also a slide deck that I got, and I've got the link for you guys in the presentation over here as well to actually go to the, it's on docs.microsoft.com. With this being a new announcement, I'm not exactly sure what they are getting at over here, but they've got a green, yellow, and red deployment scenario over here, where in a green scenario, your app is in sync, your minor and major versions are in sync, and your data is fully replicated between your Business Central on-premise solution and your cloud solution. The idea with this is if you're still using, or if you upgrade your customer to the Business Central on-premise version, you have the ability to replicate your information to the cloud, even though initially it is just for utilizing some of the online features and utilizing the intelligence features. I think Microsoft's idea over here, and from what I've read in the blogs, it seems like Microsoft's idea over here is to, at a later stage, give you the ability to get cloud ready now and the ability to move to the cloud version at any point in time once you're actually ready to do so. And this is what they're trying to say. I think they're trying to say you've got to get to a green scenario over here where you keep your Business Central on-premise version in sync to the versions that's available on the cloud, and your data remains fully replicated between the two. Now, Microsoft actually gives you, you'll see over there when you go down to yellow, your data is partially replicated. I'm going to show you guys a video just now that Microsoft showed at Directions North America as well. It actually utilizes a GP implementation to connect to the cloud, but let me show you over there. There are some setup instructions over here. I've included the link in here. Let me just jump onto that page, and then I can show you guys where to find the setup instructions. Okay, connect the intelligent cloud with Dynamics 365 Business Central. So they've got some instructions over here. They've got some steps and things to consider before actually doing this migration. And they tell you what the setup steps are over here, how to connect your SQL Server, etc. Let me just quickly show you guys over here basically what it entails. It's logged me out, so let me just log back in over here quickly. So what it basically entails is you get a Business Central online version, and when you go to your setup and extensions and you go to your assisted setup over there, you will find a setup intelligent cloud option over there. Now, unfortunately, time caught up with me. I would have loved to have deployed a on-premise version so that I could actually connect to it and show it to you guys. But time was unfortunately not on my side. So when you start off, it's just basically accept the privacy notice and warnings, etc. Then you choose which product you'd like to integrate with. So even though they say SL is available as well and NAV, these are the only two that are available at the moment. So you choose your on-prem version that you'd like to connect with. And upon clicking next, it just literally asks you for your SQL Server connection details. And at that point in time, it would ask you which one of the different companies you would like to connect to. So you have a company selection screen, and then you enable and schedule your replication between your on-premise version and your cloud version. So you will see over here that there are some limitations. Your replication cannot exceed 150 gigabytes, for instance. There are a little bit more details over here. They, of course, have some warnings and things like you have to have at least one super user on your on-premise deployment. And once you've done that, you can actually have access to your data in Business Central. So if I just go out of the assisted setup over there, you'll see that you have your Intelligent Cloud Insights over here. And if you go to your Intelligent Cloud Insights, once your data is replicated, you can have KPIs, some insights that the Cortana intelligence is actually built on top of your data, as well as you will find reports and things over here that tells you what the status of your replication is, etc. And any action messages that you would need to take, it would warn you about over there as well. So there is also another link over there that tells you a little bit more about the Business Central everywhere. So let me quickly show you guys, and I've actually had to take the video out of my presentation and link it up to YouTube just to get it small enough to distribute. So let's hope that on the next slide my YouTube video actually works. Let's see if we click on it, and
Bernie, there is no sound and the video is not loading. Maybe you can explain it and we will share the link afterwards with everybody that they can watch it.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, so what the video, can you at least see the video playing?
Quality's a bit poor.
Okay.
It's jumping around a bit.
Okay, for, okay. Just to try and get the, there we go. Okay, so for those, that video is actually available on Microsoft's YouTube channel for Business Central. So if you actually go to YouTube and you search for Dynamics 365 Business Central, there is a Dynamics 365 Business Central YouTube channel. It's actually mostly populated with videos for North America, but the latest upload that they've done is actually that video over there. So you can go and have a look at it over there as well. It is embedded in the presentation over here. So when I send the presentation through to you guys, you can have a look at it in the presentation as well. Another announcement from Microsoft is actually the tenant administration for VARs. So what they've announced is a new admin window. I haven't been able to get much on this. The only link that I was able to find, or the main link that I was able to find, I've actually put at the bottom over there. There's a couple of people that have blogged about what was said at Directions North America, but not that much information. So we're hoping that at Directions Europe we'll find out a little bit more about this. But basically for VARs that are selling Business Central, Microsoft has announced a new tenant administration window for the VARs. So all of your customers you'll actually be able to see on this one admin page. And they've given us a couple of abilities on this screen. The first one is upgrade window for clients. So in other words, what Microsoft will do is, as they release code releases to Business Central, what they're going to do is they're going to give you the ability to say which customers are ready to upgrade, because some of the customers might have some customizations, and should any of the code releases actually break any of the customizations, we don't want Microsoft to automatically roll out these upgrades to the actual client. So according to the documentation, they say that Microsoft will respect the upgrade settings that you set within this tenant administration window. And you can then choose which upgrades you are ready to roll out to which of your customers. There will also be telemetry available on this tenant administration window, where you can basically see what is happening with your different customers. There'll be troubleshooting and notifications telling you what's actually happening with your different Business Central deployment, giving you the ability to have proper insights into all of your customers' tenant deployments for Business Central. One of the nicest things that they actually announced over here was the ability to provision a sandbox environment straight from your production data. And this is something this is actually a point that I've repeated in the developer section a little bit later on as well, because this is something that is utilized more often than not. Very often, sometimes a customer would, say for instance, post certain transactions that causes some incorrect balances for them. And they want to know, what is the effect of canceling these transactions? What would happen if I did this, etc. They want to play off some scenarios, etc. Where you don't have to do that on your production data anymore. You can now provision a sandbox environment and go and see what happens if I go and reverse these transactions. Will it fix the errors that I might have, costing issues, etc. Once again, I've provided the link on there to the website on docs.microsoft.com, where you can go and read up a little bit more about it. Once again, on docs.microsoft.com, even on Microsoft's official documentation site, there's not that much available on this, and we haven't seen the site as such yet. We're hoping that we'll be able to see this at Directions this year as well. And then the big announcement is where'd my CAL go? So Microsoft announced this year that CAL will be discontinued from 2020. You'll see as well at the end of the actual presentation itself, when we get to the roadmap, that in 2020 Microsoft will also discontinue the role-tailored client. What does that mean for most of us? Well, that means that those developers that's been clinging to CAL and not wanting to move on to extensions, and I see this with a lot of partners, even partners that I've been saying to that they need to have a look at this stuff, have been ignoring this and just sticking to the old CAL developers, not even attending the What's New trainings, etc. This means that within a couple of years, there's going to be no more CAL for us to use. There is a TXT to AL conversion tool that's available. It's been available from Microsoft for a while. But Microsoft has actually, at Directions North America, announced that they've now used this conversion tool to actually convert the base product completely through to AL. Apparently, it's taken a little more than 2 years worth of work, but they've now finally, and in actual fact, as far as I believe, they only completed this the week before Directions. So they actually showed it at the Directions conference to the audience that was there. They actually showed how they used this tool to convert the entire base product to AL. And this is also what Microsoft has announced, is that they're actually going to convert the entire base product to AL, and in effect, creating an extension as the base application. That means that we're going to have a look at converting our CAL to AL. Now, what does this mean for us? It means that we cannot ignore extensions anymore. It's a reality, it's here to stay. And in terms of moving forward and moving our customers forward, for those partners amongst us that have ignored extensions up to date, it is something that we definitely have to have a look at. One of the first things I want to mention over here is that it doesn't mean you have to go big bang approach. It doesn't mean that you have to take all of your developers and start developing 100% for extensions. The first thing that you can do is start by developing differently. Ensure that your programmers are developing in a manner that allows them to do the conversion from CAL to AL. That means using event-driven programming to actually do the programming that is required. Instead of doing inline editing into the code, creating hooking into events and doing the programming in that way. There are quite a lot of documentation, or there is quite a lot of documentation available online if you haven't started doing this yet. This is something that Microsoft actually released. If I remember correctly, it was version 2016 they released it for the first time, where you can hook into events and do your programming in there instead of doing your programming in line with the rest of the code. This, of course, just means that upgradability, etc., is improved quite drastically as well. But you can still use CAL at this point in time to do that programming. What it also means is if you've used event-driven programming instead of inline editing, it means that you can use that TXT to AL conversion tool to convert your code in the future. Microsoft's done a lot of work to actually get this tool working in such a way so that they can convert the entire base product from CAL to AL. So start using event-driven programming is a very first step that you can take. You can learn to use the TXT to AL conversion tool, because if you're using event-driven programming, once you've learned to use AL properly and you upgrade customers in future, you can use the TXT to AL conversion tool to easily convert your code to AL. I've included a link over here to the docs.microsoft.com. Of course, there's a lot of training that you can attend as well. But start learning how to use Visual Studio Code and AL. There are some references over there. And then one of the things that might have stopped people from using AL to date is some of the limitations that's in AL. And there are certain scenarios that you might want to go and do inline editing. I'm thinking, for instance, in a multi-company scenario where I did a development recently where I needed an extra parameter to be passed to a specific function in terms of bank recons that had the company name into that parameter. There are certain instances that might still want to force us to go and do inline editing because we think it is not possible to do this in the way in which AL works. I've been able to find workarounds for almost all scenarios. That one still eludes me at the moment, but just a little bit of brainstorming and thinking actually does go a long way in terms of figuring out how to do your code just differently so that it works for upgradability to AL. And if you find any limitations in AL, Microsoft has actually got a site that you can go to where you can go and log your limitations. So if there are still limitations that's preventing you, especially in terms of events that are not available in the system that you want to hook into, there is on github.com/Microsoft/AL/issues. You can go and log your issues over there, and Microsoft is actually pretty good. For a couple of the partners that we've run into some of these limitations, I know that they've logged issues, and the one partner actually told me Microsoft got back to them within a day and said that the new hooks have been created for them. So what else do we need to know? In terms of moving over into an environment where change is happening at such a fast pace, one of the things that we might need to look at is the testing framework or the test automation. Imagine you've got a customer and you've done some customizations for that customer, and Microsoft launches a new version, and with this new version it actually goes and breaks certain features within the customizations that you've actually done. And this is a real possibility. So one of the things that you can actually have a look at is the testing automation that is available within the product. So I've created a couple of test code units over here just to demo to you guys what is available. Now, I know that the guys that are in this session might not all be developers, but I want to show you what's actually done within these code units. So if I design these code units, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create some sales orders. And inside this code, I create a sales order for customer number 10,000, for item number 1,000, 10 items of. And what we're going to do is we're going to run the code unit to go and release that sales header. And then we're going to test the status before the time whether it's open. We're going to release the sales order, and we're going to test the status afterwards whether it is actually released. What you can do with these code units is, if I run this code unit now, and there's a lot that you can do with these code units will automatically go and test your customizations and go and say, if I release the sales order, is the status open before and is the status released afterwards? And it'll come back and tell you whether it's successfully tested the changes that you've actually done. And I've got a lot of examples over here, and I'm not going to spend time actually going through this because we're not a developer audience, but I wanted to show this ability to you guys. And you can actually create test runner code units which will go and do all of this regression testing for you guys. So once you've done customizations for a customer and they're on a Business Central environment, you have the ability to go and write regression testing for the customizations you've done for your customer. And then every time new versions are released by Microsoft, you can hold back on those releases, then deploy them, and then actually do the regression testing with automated code units without having to manually go and test whether your changes are actually working. This is actually something that's been available, and I stand corrected, it's either 2013 or 2015 that Microsoft actually released the testing framework for Dynamics NAV. This has been available for a while, and this is definitely something to look at in terms of your development environments going forward. Some of the other things I just want to show you guys over here is Docker. So this Azure image that I've got running over here is running something called Docker. Now, I know that a lot of you will be aware of Docker, but I still come across partners that actually don't know a lot about Docker. And as far as a development environment goes, Docker is something that you can use quite effectively in terms of creating and provisioning development environments, testing environments, etc. It means we can run multiple different versions of NAV. So what I've got over here is, if I go Docker images, I can see all of the images that I've actually downloaded from the Docker site over there. To download new images, I can just basically say Docker pull, and then I would say what image I'd like to actually pull off of the site over there, colon, and then I can give the version. If I say 2018, it will pull the latest CU of 2018, or I can give it a specific CU that I actually want to pull off of that site. Once the Docker image has been pulled off of the site, you can go and see what Docker images you're actually running, and you can provision those images into different. So you can create off of one image. Let's say, for instance, I take 2018 CU3. I can use that one image to provision a dev environment as well as a UAT environment, for instance, by just creating images off actual virtual running machines off of those images that I've pulled. These virtually running machines does not use as much resources or machine resources as, for instance, a Hyper-V image would. These machines would actually use process isolation, which is something which gives Docker its power to actually just run smaller versions of those images. And there's a lot that you can do with these Docker images. And in actual fact, a lot of the times in the extensions training, I would actually include Docker training as part of the extensions training as well. So testing framework, Docker, as well as source code control. This is something that's new in AL, the ability to manage your source code, as well as the ability to have multiple developers working in an environment where they can share their information. The stuff that we can do in AL is stuff that we can only dream of in CAL. So there's a lot of source code control built into AL, especially VS Code, and the ability to use GitHub to actually manage the code base that I'm actually working off, etc., is all features that's built into the new AL, and it's definitely something that you should look at in terms of getting your resources skilled up as well. What else is new in AL? Like we showed earlier, the ability to create a cloud sandbox environment. So if you do want to go and mess around in a customer's database, you can actually provision a cloud sandbox environment, create some extensions, publish them onto the cloud sandbox, and see what the effect is, how they work, how they run, etc. Microsoft has included some event discoverability because to date, if you wanted an event to hook into, and these are the events that I mentioned earlier on, which could be a first step for those of you that haven't adopted yet. Up to now, the events that Microsoft have actually created for us, it was difficult to see which events are actually available for us. So Microsoft included a new screen, and this new screen will actually show us all of the events that are available for us to hook into. There is a lot of Visual Studio Code and AL extension enhancements that Microsoft has actually done. They have done quite extensive debugger enhancements for us, giving us better ability to actually debug our code that we're writing through Visual Studio and AL extensions. There's a lot of IntelliSense enhancements, including the ability to get straight through to the help files for certain things straight from the IntelliSense. And this is a big announcement from Microsoft. They've included the .NET interoperability into AL and Visual Studio Code. However, the .NET interoperability is for the on-premise version only. So if you were to use AL and Visual Studio Code to write an extension, you can only do that for the on-prem version. So in other words, that extension that includes .NET will only be able to be deployed onto an on-prem solution. Of course, should you have written extensions that actually has .NET interoperability included, that of course does limit your ability to move to cloud at a later stage as well. There is also a lot of translation enhancements that they have actually done. So the ability to do better translations within the actual code itself. I've included a link at the bottom that will take you through to a page that will tell you more about all of these points over here. And then the last one, a big announcement from Microsoft as well. For those of you that don't know what a VSIX file is, when you did development on Visual Studio Code and you actually used your, and you were developing AL extensions, you would need to get the VSIX file for every single version that you were programming on. So if I was programming for NAV 2018 Cumulative Update 3, I would need to get the VSIX file specifically from that version when doing that development. If I then switched to, say, for instance, Cumulative Update 7, I would need to go and get the VSIX file specifically for that version when switching over. So Microsoft has said They're no longer going, the VSIX files is no longer going to be version specific. From now on, they will keep a online VSIX file updated on a regular basis, or you can just always use the latest one. They will all be backwards compatible. So by just always getting the latest VSIX file and ensuring that you have the latest version, you should be able to develop on most any version that's possible. I'm not 100% sure. I haven't tested it yet. Let's say, for instance, you get the latest VSIX file now and you wanted to develop on 2018 CU3. I haven't tested whether it's backwards compatible into the versions that where the VSIX version specific files was recommended. And I wasn't able to find any information prior to this, so that's still something that remains to be tested, and where we need to find out exactly what Microsoft has done over there. Just showing you guys the roadmap quickly going forward. So Microsoft has just released the Dynamics 365 Business Central on-premise. One of the big announcements, of course, the ability to have intelligently the data synchronized through to the cloud for some cloud readiness over there, etc. In 2019, they're looking at some proficiency improvements. In 2020, the web client only that they've announced. Continuous improvements into the common data service, data and intelligence. They're going to continue working on VS Code and AL improvements. They're going to continue working on the CAL to AL conversion tools to ensure that you have the ability to convert to AL. And in 2020, of course, we will have VS Code and AL only. We will no longer have the CAL development environment. And that's about it. Let's see over here. Just some other things. Like I mentioned already, there's no more role-teller client from 2020. There has been talk from Microsoft at directions about splitting the actual base application into modules. So taking, I suppose, the sales or maybe the CRM sales and marketing modules, etc., and splitting them into actual different modules that you can just use as different extensions. There is no clarity at this stage on the base app's move to AL. So Microsoft has announced that they're moving the base app to AL. From what we've seen thus far, using CAL and doing AL extensions, for instance, the ability not to see your AL tables that you've created in CAL, etc. We have no idea in terms of objects, object numbers, data, upgrades, etc., what Microsoft's view is moving forward on the base app's move to AL. And this is all questions that remains to be answered. So at this point, that concludes the section that I'm going to do. So I'm going to hand over. Is there anything I need to do to hand over?
No, I think I might need you to advance the slides once or twice, mate, but that's about it. Thanks ever so much, Bernie. That was really, really useful, mate. Thank you.
Pleasure.
Yeah, hi guys. This is Will McKinty. You may recognise my voice from interrupting Bernie 5 minutes into his initial presentation today. I have the deep and everlasting joy of being able to talk to you chaps for the next few minutes around licensing and, if you like, the QBS approach to sorting out some of the licensing questions. Now, we have built a licensing document which we are using as a repository for a number of questions that we get. Now, in the UK, we have Yammer feeds, and we have that across some of the other regions. But this single document will be owned and updated by our partner care team on a very, very regular basis. Currently, there's 25 questions answered in that document. Yes, we do refer to Microsoft policy stuff, but we do try to give it a bit of a, how can I say it, less corporate angle in terms of our responses, and we hope to be as practical as possible in terms of the way that we answer the questions in this document. So, please keep the questions coming in, and we will keep updating this document as we move on. We cover in that document. We cover across transition scenarios, discussions around the new CSP SKUs, which a lot of you are asking questions around. These funny promotional SKUs like the transition promotion and the cloud add-on SKU, and many, many more topics. So do keep the questions coming into your partner care team and your account manager, and we will frequently keep updating that document. So based upon the questions that we've seen, if we jump on to the next slide, Bernie, that would be great. Okay, I'll just wait for. There we go. Thank you, buddy. I've put together, if you like, our most frequently asked questions. So we've got our FAQ document up in the portal. We'll be sharing the link with you guys after this call. But based upon what we're seeing in terms of the frequency of these questions, I thought I'd quickly talk about these four like top of mind subjects. And looking at the IM conversations, there's one specific question I'll cover as well around how to deal with open opportunities. So first of all, we obviously have a new licensing paradigm. We have a new licensing concept where we've shifted from selling concurrent users on NAV 2018 and older to this new world of named user. Microsoft described this as the completion of the mainstreaming of Dynamics licensing, Dynamics NAV licensing with the rest of the Microsoft product set. So we are now named user. Now, what this means when it comes to transitioning from NAV 2018 to or older to Business Central on-premise is that typically it's a 2-to-1 ratio of concurrent users to named users. For the very specifics, please do refer to the license transition policy document located on PartnerSource and on the QBS Yammer feeds. Okay, super important because there are multiple types of existing license model such as business ready licensing, modular-based licensing, and perpetual, and they all have slightly different nuances in terms of how they map from one to the other. Okay, so please make sure you keep an eye on that. Now, I'm calling out here the limited upgrade rights SKU and what this actually means. So, if you purchase a starter pack, an NAV 2018 starter pack today, plus additional concurrent users, you will see it. You will see on the order that it comes up as a limited upgrade SKU. Essentially, this reduces the ratio, the number of users that you can exchange from concurrent to named. Under standard perpetual or perpetual licenses purchased before the 1st of October, you can transition at a 2. You could typically transition on perpetual at 2-to-1. So for every concurrent user, you get 2 named users. After October the 1st, you transition on a 1-to-1 basis. Okay, so it's very important to recognise that fact. Now, I'm going to address a question that's come up a lot on the IM chat, which is, hey, I've got an outstanding upgrade opportunity at this. Sorry, an outstanding net new business opportunity that was due to close in either this quarter or next quarter. What do I do about that? Well, based upon the rules as they stand today, the advice that I'm giving to partners is typically buy the starter pack at least if you're going to close the rest of that business. Now, what we see is partners typically purchase licenses at different stages within the implementation of the project. So what I'm saying to those partners who have kicked off a project, may not have made the license transaction yet, is make sure that at least you've secured the starter pack so you can buy additional users after January the 1st, 2019. In terms of let's call it the fairness of penalising partners, penalising the customers that they didn't purchase before the 1st of October. This is something that we've had lots of questions around ourselves, and we're asking the questions of Microsoft at the moment to see if we can get any resolution to that. What I would say, having dealt with license transitions in the past. So, for example, when we launched Perpetual from business-ready licensing to Perpetual, there are always very individual scenarios coming up. So what I would suggest is, please have the conversation with your account manager, have the conversation with the partner care team. 'Cause we are here to help you and give you the best advice we can. Okay, but we have seen transitions in the past. Typically, we see a reaction to licensing transitions, and typically it's not a very positive reaction. Let's be honest. But truth of the matter is, it's the new world, and we have to get used to it quite quickly. Okay, so another question, which is probably the first question that came out on the Sunday at Directions USA. Do our margins say the same? Yes, currently I have not heard or have not seen any plans to change the margins that partners are entitled to for their license. Okay, so that's I'm assuming is going to stay the same. Now, for those of you who resell AX, you may have seen that your margins have decreased in line with the Microsoft policies for AX versus NAV GP SL. Do I think that's going to happen with NAV? The answer is I just don't know, and we have not had any guidance otherwise at this moment in time. Okay. So another question I'm seeing a lot is around team member. Now, there's lots of confusions around team member for the on-prem version purchased via Dynamics Price List versus the team member purchased via SaaS on Business Central in the cloud via CSP. Do check the appendices of the licensing guide. From what we've been able to see so far in terms of the licensing guide of NAV versus Business Central on-prem, the number of tables that are excluded from the limited user looks almost exactly the same as the team member on-prem. Okay, it's got the same rules around it in terms of you can add 3 tables as long as it's got the GL, and there's a list of and there's a whole bunch of excluded tables in the appendices. So don't worry. It would be my general advice around team member. So, probably the question I'm actually asked the most, and we've certainly seen this in the UK, and the feedback from my colleagues in the other regions, QBS regions, is around protected list price. So, as we all know, or as we all probably know, I should say, on this call, a customer's BREP, Business Ready Enhancement Plan, or Enhancement Plan today, as it's called, is calculated based upon the protected list price of that customer. Okay, so what happens to that protected list price once you transition? As with all licensing transitions, the protected list price remains the same. Okay, PLP remains the same as per other license transitions, such as, for example, if you've got customers who bought the license like 15 years ago, they may have bought it on the professional model, the modular, or the MBL model. They've still got the same PLP today, barring any additional licenses that they might have purchased on the new licensing model. So that model will stay the same going forward. If the enhancement plan lapses and they want to buy to go back on BREP, the PLP will be lost and will be recalculated based upon the licenses that they have. So I would suggest that remaining on enhancement is probably as important, if not more important, than it's ever been. Okay, so those are the top 4 questions plus an additional question or additional thought in terms of what to do about existing opportunities. So, like I said, keep the questions coming, and we're also going to try to address some of these questions on an initiative that Danielle is about to talk about. So, Danielle, I'll hand over to you.
Hi all. I think we have still a lot of open questions. And did you see if we managed to cover all the questions via the chat?
I think we've actually managed to cover off quite a lot of the questions.
I have tried to copy and paste them into a mail here, so I still think some of them have been left unanswered. So just simply, read up the ones that I think are still open.
Okay. Yeah. Super.
From Marcus, will there be a bundle ready for? No, you answered that one. The bundle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So by the way, Marcus, that was a great question about the bundling of Dynamics 365 Business Central and Dynamics 365 for Sales. I don't know about you guys. I would love to see a bundle, and it is a conversation that we have started with Microsoft. It almost takes us back to the original vision of Business Edition with sales, finance and operations, and marketing. The more volume that we hear from you guys around some of this stuff, the greater the impact, the conversation that we can take to Microsoft. Yeah. So as a community, with one voice in the same direction, things we get listened to. I think is probably the best way to put it.
There was also a question from Laurent. In addition, what about customers buying NAV SQL Runtime Server and CAL licenses now? How will these licenses be converted to PC on-prem afterwards?
Okay, that is a very good question. So we put this question to Microsoft to get greater clarity. To be frank, the question was, should they basically write off their investment in SQL, which doesn't seem right. But based upon the documentation that we've seen, there is no place to order the business to basically transition the SQL. And actually the SQL, the embedded SQL SKU actually specifically mentions NAV, right? Or actually mentions Dynamics. I've asked if that covers Business Central. I haven't had the answer to that, but that will definitely be going in the FAQ. Okay.
Yeah, we'll keep it here in the records and
Yeah.
put it in there. Laurent also asked, I heard customer will get one named user license for free for each 5 concurrent users licenses pack migrated to PC. Is that right?
Can you remember?
Yeah, I heard customers will get one named user license for free for each 5 concurrent user licenses pack migrated to PC. Is that right?
Well, a lot of it depends upon what. And again, it's super important that we do look at Appendix A of the license transition policy document, because that gives the very, very clear mapping of what the customer has today versus what they'll get what they'll get there. So, if I think about perpetual, for example, if you have a named user, if you have a concurrent user on perpetual purchased before 1st of October 2018, that'll transition to one named user plus an additional named user. Whether they get an essentials user or a premium user will depend if they've got the extended pack as well, typically. Okay. So I can see a question from John as well. Will customers pay BREP on free upgrade users? No, because the BREP will be calculated on the PLP. The protected list price is how BREP is calculated. So there will be no additional BREP to pay. Okay?
And I do see we do have questions coming in, and we will record them and put them in our Q&A document so that everybody can benefit from it afterwards, because we are running out of time. And Danielle, you do have an announcement to make that will benefit all these questions as well going forward.
Yes, indeed. Thank you, Anne. Thank you, Will. Thank you,
Thank
Bernie. Because we noticed all your questions and we want, of course, to answer you all, we open from next week on Friday at 1 p.m. and later at winter time or QBS office hours. You will receive all an invite and that's the time that you can ask all your questions around Dynamics 365 and all the changes that happened after October 1st. We will do that every week till the end of the year. If you have already questions, please send them in via your PAM or regional lead. And all the Yammer, that's also possible. And if all the questions we didn't answer today via the chat, we will answer next Friday. I would like to thank you all for joining. I saw a tremendous amount of people. I wish you all a very happy weekend, and the recording and slides will be made available in the beginning of next week. Thank you all and have a nice day.
Thanks,
Thank you
everyone.
very much.